This is designed to be an atlas of the bones of the skull. And there's a number of different areas to it. We'll start out with the 3D models. If I roll over on the menu and pull down, you can see there's a number of different models here. We'll start with the exploding skull. This is a high-resolution CAT scan of a human skull. It was done at about 100 microns, and it was segmented into all of the individual bones. The viewing protocol for this and the interactivity is very similar to the tooth atlas. If you're used to it, you can be very familiar with this. You can take the mouse, hold down the left mouse, move it back and forth to rotate sideways. Take the same mouse, rotate up and down with a movement up and down. If you right-click the mouse and hold it down, you'll move the model in and out. We'll bring this around to a frontal view. You'll notice up at the top there's a transparency setting up here. What this does, this allows us to make any bone or all the bones transparent. So in this particular case, the mandible's been selected. We'll slide it around and you can see that you can bring it into any level of transparency that you want. There is a pull-down menu that selects which bone you'd like to work with. For instance, we'll slide down to the maxilla, click it. Now it's active. We can go up on the transparency bar and make the maxilla active. Make it transparent. The hide all, show all command allows you to hide all the bones so there's nothing there, or show all of them at the same time. The hide all command is interesting because it allows us to actually build sections of the skull. Since the maxilla is selected already, we will take it now and make it completely opaque. We will go down and select the maxillary teeth at the bottom of the pull-down menu and make those opaque. So now we have a maxilla that we can move around and look at. On the left-hand side, you'll see the annotations of the objects. And in this area, we're going to go in and select the maxilla, because that's the bone we're looking at. You notice there's a difficulty level here. Level 1 is designed for perhaps high school students. If you go to level 2, you get more choices. If you go to level 3, you get a lot of choices. Level 3 would be of interest to the anatomists. And notice there's 22 different structures. Level 2 would be of interest to probably medical or dental students. So these annotations have descriptors with them. I'll click the intermaxillary suture. The annotation follows the bone around if we do interactivity with it. So for this level, we can have all of these structures that are annotated with descriptors for each one. We click on each one and we find out what the descriptors are. We'll hide these now. I'm going to go back to the show all command. And another interesting feature of this is what we call the exploding skull. And we'll take this around, look at the top of the cranium, and you can see that we can take the skull and actually separate the bones out. And this allows us to go inside and look at these bones in space and see how they relate to each other. By using this command, you can see the interrelationship and how these bones fit together. We'll pull back out now, come back out of the cranium, rotate the model around. So you can see the vast level of interactivity that we can do with this. How would you use this? You can use this as a demonstration for patients. If you're a clinician, you can use it as lecture material if you're an educator, and if you're a student, you can use it to learn the names of all the structures. One of the requests we got was that we take these you make small regional variations based on this ability to build things. So one of them was the orbit. This is a suggestion from the ophthalmologist. Same type of protocol, it's just that it's limited to the bones of the orbit. The exploding skull feature, again, allows you to see how these bones fit together. You can select them, whichever one you want, make them opaque or transparent, and again, you've got the ability to do annotations with these. Hide that. We will now go to the nasal bones, another regional area. The ear, nose, and throat people suggested this to us. And again, you have the ability to do the exploding skull feature and select out which bones you particularly want to look at. For instance, we can take the maxillas and get rid of them here if you want. We also have some sinus cavities. This is an unusual feature because you don't really get to visualize sinus cavities, and what we did was segment these spaces out and show you how they relate to the skull. Let's go back to the base of the skull. This is a model that is designed to help people study and figure out the foramina at the base of the skull and what nerves and blood vessels go through them. So we will take the skull, make it opaque, and you can see that you can go down, click on the various structures, and find out where these arteries and vessels are vis-a-vis the foramina. It's a very good teaching and studying aid for the base of the skull. Another really important part of this is the cranial nerves, and this takes a moment to load. We took the same skull and artistically rendered all of the cranial nerves. And if they're all up at the same time, which is the case here, this is a relatively complicated diagram. But we can take and hide all of these, and then go back and select the ones that we're interested in. For instance, we'll go down and do the trigeminal maxillary branch of the trigeminal neuralgia, maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve, and make it opaque. And now we can go select that as an annotation, the trigeminal maxillary branch, and you can see these are all of the structures that have been annotated here. We'll hide those, and we can go in and quiz ourselves on the various nerves that are there. These images can be taken out of here and used in lectures if you're an educator, and this is a tremendously powerful source of illustrations for lecture material. So we have the cranial nerves. Select another one here. See how we can bring it in. The optic nerve. We'll hide all of these again and bring them all back, and take the skull and make it more transparent just so we can see where we're at with these. We have an inner ear, which I think is really quite amazing. It's a very, very high resolution scan of the osteology of the middle ear. Works the same way. You have the same type of interactivity, and you can shut the bones on and off. The last thing we have is a mummy, and we were fortunate enough recently to scan a child mummy out of the Rosicrucian Museum in San Jose. This was done at about 140 microns, and this is the highest resolution scan that's ever been done on a mummy, including the King Tut mummy. We'll take the sarcophagus and make that transparent, and you can see the skull of this child. We aged her based on her dentition. Let's rotate this around. We'll bring it toward us. And now what I'm going to do is select the mandible. I'm going to make that mandible semi-transparent. And in there you can see the permanent teeth being formed. The primary teeth are in function. She has a full set of them. The permanent teeth are starting to calcify. And based on the calcification patterns of the permanent teeth, we determined this child was about 4.5 years old when she died. We'll show all of that, bring this back around, and go on to the next section. So those are the 3D models